Hi, this is Charles Kelly. In a survey conducted by the BBC, the top 50 UK employers said they had no plans to reopen offices and bring all their workers back into the standard workplace. They were happy for workers to remain at home and have even thought about closing down offices for good. Some have brought in a few workers that could not work in the office or work from home, so they had to come into the office. But it is a trend, and I believe it's been brought forward, this trend, by the coronavirus and the need to get technology in place quickly to deal with social distancing and keeping people safe. And I'm asking you, really, is this the end of the office as we know it? Is this the end of working in an office environment, which I grew up working in, and love it or hate it, it was almost like a social environment, a place to go, a place to mix and bounce ideas around, and people enjoy going into work in the office. Maybe they don't enjoy the commute, but what I'm asking is, what's going to happen? Is this kind of the end of it? Now, some people might be glad of that. Some people are quite happy working from home. Others might say, well, no, they actually like to work, with people. So this is what I'm asking here. Now, first of all, if this does happen, what's going to happen to all these office blocks? Now, I worked in the city many years ago. I worked for an insurance company, and it was a busy place then. But now, a lot of the buildings I used to work and visit, I was a rep on the road, are not there anymore. They've been replaced by huge towers. The Gherkin, the cheese grater, the Shard. I mean, the tallest buildings in the country, in Europe, I think. 50, 60, 70 floors high. Amazing buildings. So what's going to happen to all these buildings? People say, well, you can turn them into flats. Yeah, you could do. But companies who rent space there have long leases. They don't just come in like a serviced office and have a 3-month lease. They've probably invested millions in securing space in these prestigious offices, financial firms and that sort of thing, with trading floors and all sorts of things. They've got long leases. Are they just going to renege on them? Are the landlords going to say, fine, we realise you want to keep staff working from home, so we'll let you off the leases? I don't think so, somehow. And these landlords are not small landlords like me. They are, big companies. They're insurance companies, they're pension funds, they're companies like Land Securities, huge companies, and some of them are owned by banks as well. So I don't think it's going to be that easy to just, close down these offices. And then if you did turn them into flats, let's say Land Securities said, well, all the offices can clear out, and we're going to turn this big office that we've got into flats. Well, do people want to live in that sort of environment in the city centre, in an expensive environment with a pretty soulless place sometimes? Would they want to live in there if their work can be done from home? I mean, the idea of living in the city in a poky little flat, sometimes an ex-council tower block that people wanted to get out of a few years ago, now they're selling for $500,000 and 600,000 in Hackney, and yet when I used to go and visit clients in Hackney, I was like watching my back. I thought I was going to get mugged at night. I was scared to go there. And now people, yuppies and the upwardly mobile set, and are actually paying a lot of money and a lot of high rents to live in these ex-council blocks. Why? Because they don't want to commute from Essex and Hertfordshire and Surrey and spend an hour and a half on the train. They want to be with it in the buzz in the city, and be near their office. They want to walk to work, cycle to work. All this stuff is part of a city living. But, if you take that away, if you suck out the office environment and the workers, then what happens to that city? I think the city will die. If the workers stop going into the city, they will die. There was already, if you go into the city of London, I'm not talking about the West End, I'm talking about the city financial district, it's full of shops and offices and coffee bars and restaurants. They're all suffering at the moment because people are not going into work. Taxi drivers are surrendering their licenses because there's not enough people using them and tourists coming in. So my thinking is, if you sucked the life out of the city and the work's no longer there, why would someone want to pay 600,000 for a studio or £1 million for a flat in the city, in the Shard, when they could, buy a big old house and some land a little bit further out and work from home? If they're going to work from home, then why not work from a decent sized home and have a house that's big enough for your children, your family, and you've got an office and a peaceful office to work from and space. I'm sure that a lot of people will be thinking about this if this develops. It's already happening in America. In America, companies like Facebook, Twitter, Google are just saying to workers stay at home for the rest of the year. So that's my thinking on it, is that if you suck that lifeblood out of the city, it will be soulless. It will be like a ghost town, and who would want to live there? Sure, there's still going to be people who want to live in town, but I do wonder. It's still a nice place to live in town, but I don't think the attraction will be there so much to live there if you can live and buy a bigger place further out, because I think a lot of people want to live in town because they hate the commuting, they hate slipping on the train every morning. So it'd be interesting to see what happens there and how this thing develops and pans out. Now, is it really more efficient to have workers working from home? Well, people say it is. I don't think so. I mean, I ran businesses, and I don't think it would have been efficient for people to work at home. They need to be there, where first of all they can be supervised. Secondly, they've got people around them they can ask questions, they can bounce ideas off of. And I don't think it would have worked just handing out assignments and letting people work from home. Also, there are a lot of businesses that have customer-facing sides. That we do business with people at the end of the day. We sell to people. We are people selling to other people. It's not machine to machine. So you need to see customers. You need to see clients. If you're in the city, you need big law firms, big accountancy firms. Yeah, they can do a certain amount of stuff on Zoom, but sometimes clients want to come in and sit down around a boardroom and talk. And there are a lot of businesses that deal with clients all the time. Are we just going to be in a world where everything will be on Zoom and email? Well, perhaps it will be. I don't know. But I think my own view is there'll be a bit of both. There'll be less need for offices, but they'll still keep some aspects of the offices there. Of course, we are entering a world where a lot of jobs will be replaced by automation anyway. I was watching a movie, a documentary movie called American Factory. I don't know if you've seen this. This is where a Chinese firm making glass for cars, Fuyao, have set up a factory in Ohio in the old Rust Belt, where most of these workers used to work for companies like GM on very high hourly rate, like $60, $70 an hour. And now Fuyao have come in and put them on like $12 and $14 an hour. And it's very interesting to see the cultural differences between the Chinese workers who work 7 days a week, they work fast, and the American workers who want this and they want that, and they want health and safety, they want this and they don't like to do this, and they don't like to be told what to do by some Chinese guy, and it's very, the cultural difference is very interesting. They had a big tussle over, I won't spoil the whole film for you, but at the end of it they said up to 375 million people worldwide will have to find a completely new way of working when this seismic change of mechanization comes in. So perhaps it is the end for offices, and then what will happen to them? Well, for smaller offices, I think smaller developers can get involved and maybe repurpose those offices, because they're not all in the city centre. They might be in the suburbs, they might be out in smaller towns and other parts. They could be repurposed by smaller developers. But the big buildings in the city, the big iconic buildings, they're owned by large companies. If they want to repurpose them, perhaps they'll do a mixture of offices and flats and bring in more flats, or put in hotels there instead. And I know that John Lewis is planning to redevelop some of its sites into housing as it closes down stores. So, a lot of these will be repurposed. But if you take away the jobs, who's going to buy all these places? Who's going to buy all these flats? Now we know that we do need more housing, but a lot of the housing needed is the more affordable housing. The government say they want to build 300,000 homes a year. Last year was the highest ever, 240,000. I imagine it will be lower this year because of the work been stopped for much of the year. But to do this, to achieve this, they're bringing in some sweeping changes to the planning laws, and there's a consultation going on at the moment. You can read the government white paper. There's some sweeping changes coming in to make it easier to build. I mean, at the moment, I work as a councillor and as a local mayor, and I was on the planning committee, and I saw that just dealing with something like a local plan took 5 to 7 years. If you're planning a new village somewhere, they told me it could take 10 to 12 years before it was ever even started. So that's too long. And in fact, in the government white paper, it says that by the time they've made the local plan up, a lot of the information is out of date. And that's exactly what happened, because they were assuming immigration figures to go up and up and up. And then Brexit came in, and maybe the figures are not so high now. And there's all sorts of things that can change in 5 to 7 years. So that's what the government's planning. They do plan to build more of the affordable homes that people need. I didn't see much in there about council homes. I think we do need to build more council properties for people that will never be able to afford to buy a house or rent privately, and people who want the security of tenure just to stay in a place for many years to come. I haven't seen any major building of council property since the 1970s. When was the last time you saw a town built like Milton Keynes or Basildon or Harlow? I just haven't seen them. Towns built on railway lines, on existing road links, not stuck in the middle of the green belt somewhere, but proper towns with jobs and factories on one side and housing on the other, and shops and libraries and train stations and good road links. Yeah, I haven't seen any of those since the Milton Keynes, since the 1970s, and that's the sort of housing I think we need. So there we are. What's your view on the future of the office as we know it? To summarise, my view is that there will be a reduction of office space, and there will certainly be a lot of smaller offices and medium-sized office buildings that will need to be repurposed and maybe turned into flats. I think that's definitely going to continue. Of course, this has been allowed under permitted development for a long time, so we've seen a massive reduction in office space, particularly in the suburbs. One company I know couldn't find offices because their office was closing down, and all around them office buildings were being turned into flats. Some of them just converted straight into flats, others were demolished and turned into completely new buildings. But it is happening. It seems to be the way of the future, and that's the way things. So we'll have to adapt to whatever's happening. So thanks for listening, and have a great evening. This is Charles Kelly, Money Tips Daily. Check out my blogs, moneytipsdaily.com, and my podcast on iTunes. And thanks for everyone listening on iTunes and on Facebook Live. And I do appreciate your comments. And hi to everyone watching on Facebook Live. Hi, Billy. Good to see you. And I hope you have a great evening. Thanks a lot. And thanks, everybody. Bye for now.